welcome to our review of the Electrum archive with all these waggly lines on the overlay. Um, so, what is the Electrum archive? As the person who proposed the game, I will go last.
Um, it's science fantasy. It's kind of grimdark. It's an OSR game. It has the wizard fighter thief. Um,
It kind of
you
had
can
this
get.
balance, but sorry.
The one OSR point. There wasn't a standard 10-foot pole, and that feels like a drastic oversight, quite frankly.
I really liked the balance between, okay, you have this awesome, unique setting with the Electrum and basically gold and silver being straight up useless, and we've got a new currency. That's cool. There are a lot of setting touch points, and then at the same time, if you didn't want to interact with any of it, you could chuck it out the window because it was straight up fantasy as well. All of those fantasy touchstones of, yes, you're dungeoneering, go to town, go to dungeon, come back to town, worked exactly the way you would think it would, despite the setting being slightly different.
Yeah, I would say, do you want to spend money to cast spells? Play this game.
Yep.
Your money you get in game is your spell currency.
Yeah. It's a thing for the spellcaster class, which we'll get into each of the three classes because they're simple. There's only 3 of them, and they're pretty simple, but not. I wouldn't call them complex. I would say they offer meaningful choices, is what I will say.
Yes, that's a fair way to put it. They're not hard. They're not complicated, but they are.
Yeah,
like they definitely shape how you play the game.
On which class you got.
I think, yeah, the Electrum Archive, as we already said, OSR science fantasy game that's primarily focused on dungeon delving and exploring. The PCs are assumed to be dungeon delvers. There's a specific world reason for dungeon delving to exist. Dungeon delvers are a treasured part of the economy in this game. It is the only way to add new money, is a specific substance that you can only get from dungeons, and you consume it through like spell casting or other things, because money is, let's call it magic drug gasoline. You use it to power certain machinery. That's
cars,
spaceships,
wizards,
yep,
armor, light bulbs,
spirits, all sorts of things.
Back massagers, whole thing.
Puzzle boxes. Yeah. Elder blood. So the whole thing.
It's all magic gasoline.
So I want to say something pretty early on, which is I got the game for free. It was given to me by the creators. Not like from an intentionally we know who you are. It was, I went to a convention, they were giving away some copies to a bunch of people, and we were all game designers, so it wasn't just like people. It wasn't just people. No.
It
was like fellow designers. I have a bunch of these. Here's one for everyone kind of thing. It wasn't intentionally sent to me, but it also wasn't just like, yeah. Either way, I took it. I'd never heard of it before. I flipped through it, and I was like, this is really good layout. I really like this layout. I really like how they use black and white contrast. I really like the labeling.
It does look nice.
And then I started actually reading the game, and I was like, I kind of want to try running this. And I was still at like probably a 6 or a 7 out of 10 in terms of like if 5 was a totally neutral, don't care if I play it. I was like interested in this game, but not in love with it. I propose we play it, do a 1-shot, 2-shot, see how we feel. That turned into 6 sessions, in a good way, of us to varying levels of like extremity, falling in love with the game, I would say.
That's pretty well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good game.
Good game.
We talked about layout.
Good play again.
We're on. Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned layout a bit.
It's nicely done. The art's good. They definitely thought about the layout, which is usually my complaint in many of these reviews, is that they didn't have an art director. This just looks like they hired a single designer to do the art and the layout, so it was they also didn't hire an art director, but they did hire just one person, and that one person did a good job.
I
It looks nice.
think that's mostly what happened. It was mainly made by two people, and I'm pretty sure one did most of the writing and one did most of the presentation and cleanup, including some rewriting, I believe. They did more than just layout. They'd like full on, like, apparently based on some of the credits in the second book, which we'll get to how the book works. The designer, the layout person, I think it was a layout person, also redesigned the pre-made adventures to be better, which are amazing, which we'll get to.
I guess they did hire some other artists.
Yeah,
so anyway,
they had more
it's all
artists,
pretty
but there was
cohesive.
two main people.
Yeah, it's pretty cohesive design-wise. It reads pretty well. It has kind of that more modern OSR game feel where they want you to have the like old school block of text, but then they do like a pretty good job breaking it up with some like header and footer designs, some nice like title card illustrations, and a couple kind of second edition monster manual style, just like quarter monster pictures
Yeah,
that are shoved in there, and that really makes me feel like
well, this isn't technically a monster.
it really makes me feel like how a better, classier way of bringing in the concept of like that old school monster manual where they just have one picture of the monster and then a block of text about it. It gets that vibe across, but in a much more condensed format that doesn't devote an entire $60 book to these are all of our monsters I could think of.
Let's talk about that. This is a small booklet. This is everything you need to play the game. There is a second book. I believe there will be more. The Electrum Archive is a series of zines of which there are two. There's also a game jam with fan-made projects as well for it, with other adventures and classes and other material for it. But it is short and it uses its space well. Every page feels full of information, dense enough to get what you need, and with few enough pages to, even if you can't really find what you're looking for, there's few enough pages that you can eventually find it in a minute or two anyways. But not so dense that it's difficult to read because of the layout.
As somebody who likes to either dive so in depth into a book that I know every aspect of the systems and can rules lawyer it, or not touch the book at all, this book was lovely in that I never opened it. There were 5 handouts on Roll20, and that gave me absolutely everything I needed to know about the game. That was honestly wonderful for me. I'm seeing the layout now for the first time, and that looks cool, but I also love that I didn't need it.
Yeah, I would agree with everything everyone said. Again, I didn't look at the book really either. I just looked at, okay, how do I do this? Okay, it's probably in this handout. Cool, let's do that.
We'll get to the rules next, almost. I think we'll go to the world first because that's the thing you're doing the rules in. But the rules for combat are almost, like, I would say 80% of your combat rules is on a single double page spread. Done. That is all of combat. And it's not a bad thing. It has parts to it, but it's, very good at, like, explaining itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like their silly little combat illustration way too much, to be honest.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, the little silly one in the top right corner.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
I like it.
Yeah. Do we want to go to combat next and come back to the world? We were going to talk about the world next, but do we want to just switch into mechanics, or do we want to talk about the world? What do we think?
You can talk about the world.
Okay.
Okay, world it is.
There's 7 things. There's 7 world facts. That it gives you, and that's good that it gives you something. But the 7 world facts left me wanting in a negative way, because they're so specific, and it really feels like if I'm not gonna get the vibes right if I try to flesh out their 7 world facts into like an actual like part of the story. Like if the 7 world facts when there's an evil dark wizard or whatever, I am steeped enough in a generic fantasy nonsense that I could easily flesh that out. And it's cool that I'm not steeped enough in the vibes of this world that I could guess what the next answer is. Like, that's a good thing. But it means that when I look at these 7 facts, it leaves me wanting the book about it and not wanting to fill the space in myself.
I did, because of the way the detailed way they were put in, I expected there to be a book about it. When I pulled something out and like, oh, this is a cool fact. Obviously, we'll have tons more information on this thing if it's one of the 7 touchstones of this book. And then it wasn't there.
For some of them
Yeah.
it wasn't.
I
For some it
actually
is. But yes, the ones we happened to pick didn't.
Yeah. I would have really liked to have gone into this knowing that and have a session 0 to flesh it out, because I think that they did give us beautiful little gems to then expand around and create our own world with. It's just we didn't know we needed to do that, and it's hard to do it in the middle of play.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, I was gonna say it's like very much. I don't know why, but the thing that popped in my head is like if you took Dune and like you like made it more sci-fi. If that makes sense. It's like
Or fantasy.
Yeah, like more like fantasy. Like the Dune world collapsed, and now it's fantasy Dune.
Yeah, the back page of the first book is full of inspirations. Dune is obviously among them, alongside Morrowind, Ultraviolet Grasslands, Dark Sun, Eberron, Mothership, and like 12
Kill
more.
6 million demons?
Kill 6 million.
Sick. I love that webcomic.
Yep. Maze Rats. Into the Weird and Wild. Yeah, tons. There's lots of inspirations. And this world... So, if you were to take one individual component of this world, you will have seen it before. But the way that this game and setting mixes them together in very... Like, how they interact with each other, how they feel, how they're described in terms of language, it feels like its own thing. My one way to look at the things that Indigo and Marissa both described is... The setting is so interesting, I want more. Where's more? In a specific way. And the downside is that you thought there was more and there wasn't, as Marissa was saying. But the upside is it's interesting enough to want more in the first place.
Yeah, and that's a definite positive.
Yeah. There are pages and pages that summarize regions, like the Ruinlands is a region. And there's, I think, 6 or 7. They have vague, like, here's how long it roughly takes to travel. They have the individual regions have like soft, not to scale mini maps of sorts that shows like how long it takes to travel between areas. But there is the world does not have a map per se. There it isn't anything like that.
And that's fine.
That's good.
Fine.
I would say.
We'll talk about that with travel, but like
I think
not
that's
having
a
that big
good
mapping.
thing. Because if there was a map, we would spend time looking at it.
Yeah. And not exploring random nonsense.
Yeah. Maps are great in
Like,
books
I remember...
because you're kind of reading a map like you read a book in a way. But in a role-playing game, you want to do things.
Yeah. The one map that I really do remember is the city map. And I'm not sure if that came from the adventure, if that came from just the game, but it in some ways made sense because as you worked with the influence system and a couple of the other downtime actions, they were very tied to the specific city, which you had a specific map for. So it was kind of a matter of, okay, you want to dive into a map of a place? This is the one that matters. Think about this one here.
Yes, and the map of... Can I show this off? It's paid. I'm not going to show it off, but the map of the assumed starting city, Titanport, it's not so much a map as a full-scale building-to-building illustration. It's not labeled. We found the adventure site that one of our pre-made adventures took place in because it looked like that a certain portion of the map. It was very impressive.
That's cool.
Yeah, it functions like a map to me, but the amount of art they put into it's like a photograph, but if you then strongly filtered it into black and white drawn style.
I could say it looks like a aerial shot in a cartoon where they're
Yeah,
showing off a city.
exactly. It's that. So it's not just here's labels and lines and symbols representing it. It's like, no, here's the city. Here's what it looks like. We're not going to tell you what that weird tower in the top right corner with floating fragments above it means because it's not labeled.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, there's lots of those.
Don't worry about it or make it up yourself.
And it doesn't tell you like, hey, that bottom left corner, that looks kind of like farmland. We're not labeling it. Figure it out.
Yeah, it's a picture.
Yep. So it's very cool. That's the only thing, and that's in the second book.
World, Elder Ink. We talked about magic, hallucinogenic, gasoline.
Yeah, it's the blood of the aliens that used to rule the world, and they don't anymore, and all their spaceships crashed.
Which is wild for an economy based on that.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I guess it's no sillier than gold, but at least we can reuse gold.
Yeah, once you inhale the ink, you're done. Like, that's it.
Yeah, it's just the ever-degrading value of the currency by the whims of magical idiots.
I'm sure eventually they'll switch currency, but we're probably going to have, like... There's still way more ink out there than there are people who are... than there are uses for it right now. They're just all locked behind, trapdoors.
But I mean, even with that gives me something of, ooh, I wonder what happens when you do run out of ink. I wonder, and I start immediately getting, let's create this aspect of this world. Let's create this aspect of the system. I wonder if we can put an adventure around that. And I got that with so many little bits and pieces of this world.
Yeah, for a game that doesn't have, as far as I can think of, rules for, like pretty much trade or dealing with the economy as a merchant, this is a very a world driven by economics. There isn't a strong religious force as far as I can think of. There isn't a strong there's no individual tyrant that is.
There's merchant houses.
There's merchant houses, and trade is the main flavor of the world building.
I think the idea is you're supposed to do most of your work for the merchant houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the most probably religious adjacent thing would be the twin-souled emperor. But I don't know anything more than what's in the little bullet point for the twin-souled emperor.
Yeah.
It's got two souls.
I would imagine someone saying, hey, dog, I got a spirit from the realm beyond in human flesh. They probably have a religion.
The full book has an entire 3 sentences about them, and it is a lot more informative. But it's they don't say what they look like. It's good, but it still is one of those build upon it. It's seeds that the GM can water.
Oh, it's not even a person. It's a bucket. It's a bucket that 2 people live in.
I don't want to spoil it, but
It's in the book.
It is in the book, but
they're just in a hot tub. Is that what they're saying?
It's just 2 immortal souls in a clay pot.
So it's a lot more true than most wannabe deity kings or regions.
Yeah, you can see the souls swimming around like 2 koi fish or whatever.
Oh,
it's yin and yang.
Yeah. It's
like the North Pole.
The North Pole spirit well thing. Oasis. That's it. Anyways, let's the world is cool. The world is interesting.
Yeah. There's factions that don't really do anything unless you make them do something.
Yeah. It has factions,
and
but
they all have 3 sentences about them.
Yeah, they don't work like the Stars Without Number factions where there's no faction system, and there's no assumption that they're going to be doing big things to change the setting within the
Kind of
scope
like
of the
would have
game.
liked to have added that, but I think that's a personal thing, and I think that the game still did it well even without that.
And
Yeah.
like many OSR games, feature compatibility, and the way they feature compatibility is the simple, like, everything is D20 based, so it can work with others. Everything uses the classic 6 stats, so it can work with others. This game, I would say, does not have mechanical, what's the word? It's not mechanically identical to many OSR games. It, I think, is still compatible with a lot of those subsystems, though.
You can take a lot of the concepts, but even if you look at the faction system that we do have, which is factions do something if I poke them.
It's very much like
that's kind of the vibe it's supposed to be like. These don't matter unless you're poking at them.
Yeah,
Then
it's
they-
like
then
it's
they
like
matter.
Something.
It's like how factions work in like Oblivion or like Skyrim. Like the Fighters
Yeah.
Guild is there, but they're not gonna do anything unless you go there. Right?
Yeah, that's kind of true.
And they do specifically quote Skyrim, by the way, as
In the
part
book?
talking about their as their
Morrowind,
inspirational
I think,
material.
was one of the things. Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
Elder
Morrowind, yeah.
Scrolls. They do specifically quote the Elder Scrolls, so you might be right on the money with how they're treating the factions, where they do nothing unless you're poking at them.
Yeah.
Like, let me in. I
You
want
would
to be in
just
charge of a
assume
wizard
they're
college.
doing things off
Because I
screen.
showed up here.
Let me in. I want to join. I want to be the Archmage in 2 days. Let me do it.
Morrowind, I don't know if you've played it. Their guild quests
I
are
have not.
lengthy. Skyrim is the only one that really
either
has
way,
the
you could
Archmage
just-
in 2 days. Oblivion
But
is longer.
either way, you
Morrowind's
could just
longer.
check off a list until you get to the top of the
I
organization.
think you kill one of the guilds has you kill the other leader to take over. Like, it's a whole thing.
We
It's
might
part
be
of the
slightly
checklist.
off topic.
Anyway,
We're on
Slightly
topic.
off topic.
We're on topic. You were aiming to be Captain Bug, okay? You spent a
Okay.
lot
wanted
of
to be the
time
human captain
trying
of the
to
bug
have
people.
Human captain of the
That's
bug people
fair.
with your loyal rat army.
Yeah, your
That was-
loyal like cranium rats, whatever they were called.
Basically, cranium rats and
There were
dog
things I thought
size.
were cool, and I brought them in.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do like the mechanics because there's like 10 factions and you don't have to do anything with them. But there's mechanics for, hey, if the player character's like poke a faction, then it narratively matters. So the rules say it narratively matters.
Mhm.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
spend too much time with it. It doesn't like tell the GM how to deal with it because each faction is different. But it just says like, yeah, if you improve your relationship with the faction by doing something for them, they'll give you a benefit. Better invent one. Here's a couple examples from other factions. But usually, they can't give you that benefit until they overcome a complication that arises as part of that. That's the normal result instead of the critical result.
So you get a quest.
You
for
get a
the
quest from them.
benefit.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems like a lot easier as a GM to like run it that way than going like, okay, the bug people are doing this. Okay, what are the merchant houses doing? Okay, this merchant house is doing this. This merchant house is doing that.
I love
that's
Stars
what-
Without Number, but
That's what
there's a reason it gave me prep burnout.
Yeah, games like to build these mechanics into it. In reality, by session 3, I go, I don't know, this I guess. And that's what they did last week? No, I didn't roll. Maybe I looked at the table before I said that? Maybe. Because you're right, the prep rules are cool, but like if you're not interacting with them, I'm not gonna keep figuring out what the robot brothel does on Tuesday nights. Like I don't care that you paid the contract to have your bard there all day on Tuesdays. We're not dealing with them anymore until you go back and poke the organization.
Yeah, so that's the world.
Yeah.
Factions. Now that we talked about it, I've come around on factions. Pro factions this
Pro
way. Now that
Actually,
I
I have
remember
to.
what,
Yep.
yeah, now that I remember what the other side of that coin is
Mhm.
on factions, it's like maybe
Yeah.
this was the right way to do it.
Maybe Todd Howard had it right.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going back to that topic, I wonder if Bethesda looked at analytics and being like, how many players actually finished those guild quest lines? Oh, let's make them shorter.
Let's make them way shorter.
Yeah, probably. All right. Rules.
Rules. So how do you make characters in this?
Combat.
As the people who made characters, how do you do that?
What do
You
you
roll
make
some
characters?
dice.
Okay.
You roll stats.
all
That's
three-
step one.
Yeah, you roll stats. The stats are weird. The stats are interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stats are
Um,
not any
this-
of your normal stats. In fact, we got confused about stats a bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Your stats.
It's that's
I can read out the stats if we want. I was going to. Okay.
yeah, sure.
Agility, that one's obvious. Body, that one's also obvious. Archive is information literacy and insight, searching through stuff. So it's kind of like intelligence finding. Like it isn't about your intelligence, it's about though sometimes it is. It's often about quickly search through archives, diagnose and treat wounds, use ink tech, analytical skills is often what it is. We also use it as intelligence frequently, but that's how it works. Mask is charisma and stealth. That was our big thing.
Yeah. That
I
was
kinda-
the mix because it twisted it up with agility and what we just normally think about that. And it was, what? What do you mean it's stealth in mask?
Agility specifically does
Um,
not say it's about stealth. It's about speed and climbing and picking locks
Dexterity.
and stuff. Mask
Yeah,
felt
I do-
really strong.
Yeah.
I do. I'm not sure if I like the charisma and stealth combo, but I do really like rolling stealth into a stat rather than like a weird skill, because skills are so limited in this anyway. And if stealth was a skill, it would just mean that everyone is down one skill slot for stealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the last
mean-
stat is spirit, intuition, and mental endurance, which you didn't quite.
I don't think we ever use
You
spirit.
used it
right?
once or twice, ever.
Basically, it seemed like it was a perception roll when we were using it in our very last one.
According to that pre-made adventure, which was fan made, so that one, so they treated it like a perception roll.
Yeah,
Read
it's like-
creature's intention is a
It's
spirit
definitely
thing.
spirit. It's definitely an insight roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep a level. I think the main problem with Spirit is that it's like an insight roll, but then also it's the one you're supposed to roll the most by directive.
It's the
'Cause it's like
classic wisdom problem in
Yeah,
games.
it's like resist effects, keep a level head, mental endurance and intuition. It's that out of the four like snippets it gives you, 3 of them are the GM saying, roll spirit, and we'll see what happens.
Similarly, we
randomly.
have body, which also
Mhm.
equally got almost never used, and also used for resisting poison and disease and other things, lifting and pushing and stuff. But I think those two are effectively the saving throw stats in how they
Yeah.
are most frequently used.
Yeah.
Archive was definitely overrepresented in the rolls.
Archive
Um,
and mask.
Those were
For
your two big
sure.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I didn't end up using agility too much.
Yeah, as the equivalent of the rogue.
You picked locks once. You picked a lock.
Yeah,
One lock.
some
Yep.
of so we'll get to this later, but we ran 3 different pre-made adventures, 2 official ones and 1 unofficial one. And the official one was just like, if you have I'll double check. My memory says it might not have said it all, but I think either the way I judged it or the way the book said it, when you're picking a lock, it's either an agility check or spend a lockpick toolkit to just do it. I think that's how we treated our first locked door we found in the dungeon.
We only found the one
first
locked
dungeon? I can't
door.
remember.
First dungeon
Because
there
we
was
even
one
did
locked
like
door.
a break into a vault heist, and we didn't.
And
use
it had a
lockpicks.
puzzle door with like nerve mutation gas.
Yeah, nerve gas puzzle
Yeah.
door. I don't.
We probably
that's
shouldn't.
its own
We shouldn't
problem.
spoil these too much because people who are wanting to play the game will probably start with those adventures.
That's fair.
Mm,
Um,
Well,
So that's attributes. You
Yeah.
roll
no
hit
more buzzing
points.
say.
Yeah.
You're sad about it.
Yeah.
You have attributes.
sad
Then you
at
pick a
whatever you roll.
background.
Yes. The backgrounds are once again 3 evocative sentences, 3 points in stats, and then your special skills.
Yeah. Your
Wizard thief
talents.
fighter.
Yeah, the 3
Yep,
archetypes,
those are backgrounds.
but we'll get to archetypes after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
The
talking about the
backgrounds.
backgrounds.
Yeah, the backgrounds are all
Hmm.
kind of, you know, pretty standard now. They didn't used to be. Now they're standard. Now they influence your stats.
Yep.
They don't really cut. This game doesn't really have like fantasy races, which I'm in favor of. This world's weird enough. I don't also need to pick between Lizard Man and Robot Man and whatever else.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
I'm just here. I'll make myself weird. Thank you very much.
There are two main races on the world, human and bug people / ear, and from what I can tell, people are meant to...
You're not a bug.
You're not a... Like, I don't remember if it explicitly says that, but you're definitely assumed to be a normal human.
Unless you're 2 ear in a trench coat.
Two bugs stacked on
Yeah.
top of each other. Yeah.
At
Anyway, the backgrounds are whatever.
Yeah, talents are like, they don't have pre-made or pre-written talents. It's just like it's a word, history, culture, geography, and if
Not even a sentence after them.
No.
You get to spend the rest of the game arguing about whether or not it counts.
And if it does,
which
you get a
is
bonus to your roll.
plus. That is a plus.
Yep. It also gives you languages, which has mattered more than I thought it would, but hasn't been critical to the game in the classic sense of like, well, everyone knows trade tongue, aka common. And occasionally you learn
But to
another
be fair,
language.
this is a better name for it. I like trade tongue
Again,
better than common.
Economy, world building. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a little frustrating of, okay, I have this language that's been dead for 2,000 years. Of course it's never coming up. Why
My
do I have
special
this
language was reading. Like, I knew the reading language. There was the talking language, and then Lamaic script, which is the reading language. My special bonus language is that I could read.
But if you read it aloud, someone else would say it totally differently than you.
Yeah, I had 2 characters, and one knew Rift Speak and then died in the first session. So the next one could read.
Excellent.
I do kind of like that as a question mark, though. Can you read or can you speak a cool functional language that helps you?
Yeah, actually, that's fair when you look at the languages you get.
What's knowledge? Because I see
literacy
that under
seems to be...
cultist. Nollish. I don't know what
Oh,
that
Knowlish.
language is. I
thought you said knowledge.
I thought it said
like the void
knowledge.
So
language?
Knowlish is the old... I don't think they're around anymore. It's also an ancient language, but also I think they're the old people, like the culture
Aliens?
No, they're the culture of ancient humans from hundreds of years ago that Titanport was built on. So, like, the first dungeon delve you did was a Knowlish tomb.
Oh, right.
So
okay,
that...
got it.
Yeah.
Some of the things in the book say, if you read Knowlish, spoilers for creating your character if you're doing that adventure, you'll be able to read stuff better.
Yeah. So there are real benefits to having some of these languages. We got a magic rock that you had to speak a special language for. Like, there are things that the languages matter for, but I do like the reading and writing languages as a cool cultural touchstone because the Electrum archive is a real thing in the setting
It's a
where
faction.
all of the books are like chiseled into plates of metal. So reading hard because there's no printing apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no
I don't
paper.
know if there
You
are
put it on
trees.
gold.
Actually, hold on. The Spore
I
Wilds
don't
has
think-
giant mushroom trees. But
That's the closest we
different.
get.
Oh, hang on. The Ruin Lands has a tree up in the corner here.
Ooh, a tree.
A
I don't think
probably
we'd make
dead
paper
tree.
out of it. I don't think we're gonna make paper out of it, though.
No, I don't think there's exactly a paper farm.
There's not a paper market.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, called the Electrum Archive, because there's a faction called that. That's a big deal in the game. They're, I think, basically the, like, public library of the game, of the world.
Yeah.
One of the strongest factions, the library.
Yes.
Yes.
Very important.
I was kicked out of the library
For wanting
that was
to do
my whole
manga.
thing. I was Farside Comics.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Farside.
Yeah.
Two completely different things.
But also the reason the game is called it is because Electrum, gold and silver mixed, that's sand in the ocean, the desert of the assumed starting area, is not made of sand. The sand particles, rather, are metal fragments of gold and silver. So gold and silver are worthless here. Happens in a lot of
I-
sci-fi stuff, but usually it's for vague reasons like asteroid mining. Here it's just the dirt.
Yeah, it's literally
Yeah.
dirt. I had to
And they, like,
to
melt it
subdue
into
my
cheap-
5e rage
Yeah.
for Electrum.
And then
Yes.
and then they melt it into cheap things. Oh, they picked it on purpose. Like, they 100%
Definitely picked it on
did on
purpose.
purpose, and I'm all in favor of it, and it's great. Electrum's stupid, everyone agrees. Let's make a whole world about it.
A world of how useless it
Again,
is.
with economic world building without gold or silver. Yes.
It's very much like, no, it's pointless. Don't even try.
Yep. You find it a gold encrusted like jewelry box. Gold? Oh.
Oh man,
Yep.
Why did they bother encrusting? The wood underneath is more expensive.
It is.
it's more
Yes.
valuable.
than the plating on it. What idiot put gold on this?
So that's background.
So after you choose your background, you choose your archetype, which is your class.
Wizard, fighter, thief.
Wizard, fighter, thief,
Yep.
but they're all a bit weird, kind of. Vagabond's not that weird. Fixer's not that weird. Warlock's kind of weird.
Yeah,
Yeah, Warlock's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I'll go first. We'll take turns because we all picked one. I was the vagabond. You get a cool special fighter point. You spend your special cool fighter points on everything. You could do them for cool fighter things, like cutting someone in half, or telling someone else to cut someone in half, or yelling real loud.
Yeah, you can AoE
know,
taunt. Force
Yeah.
everyone to target you this round.
Yes. Special fighter things. Hit 7 guys at once with a giant sword. All that cool fantasy fighter nonsense. You spend your special fighter points for it. The cool second thing you do is collect monster heads. You could use your collected monster heads for more special fighter powers.
Custom special fighter powers this time. You get a
Yeah,
dragon
based
head.
on your monster.
There will not be a dragon in this game, or if it's called a dragon, it's like some weird mechanical like thing. Dragon's way
Yeah.
too normal. But if you somehow got a dragon head, maybe you could breathe fire with it.
Yeah. Cut off a banker head, you can rob people, whole thing.
Totally normal fighter ability.
Yeah. You can you also get resistance to dragon breath or banker robbery if you
Yeah.
brandish a head.
like just like
walk
in real
into
life.
the bank. Just walk into the bank holding a head of a banker, being like, "You
Yep.
will not
They
rip
will
me
give
off.
you a better
I
mortgage."
have my warning talisman
Yeah.
of banker head."
This is what happened
I
to
will
the
not
last
have payday
guy.
loans.
Yeah. This is what happened when they charged me interest.
Yeah, that's the main secondary power concept for the fighter. There are 2 more things. During downtime, you can get even more acquainted with your head and get even better powers. Or you can get really good at the sword. You can study the blade, which is a mechanic we didn't play with.
Is
but
that a
as
thing
downtime,
anyone
Studying
can
the
do?
head.
I think that might be a thing
Yeah.
anyone can do. Yes.
It's a thing. It's a thing anyone can do, but it's the other way you can get better as a fighter that I can think of that's relevant. Is you can spend your downtime studying the blade, and you can be even more dangerous with it.
Yep. Variety of bonuses, temporary bonuses for that, and eventually, if you get enough of them, permanent bonuses. Yeah.
So I played as the Fixer, which is the equivalent to the Thief class. For me, there was one thing: when you leveled up, you got essentially a new move, a new benefit of some sort. Some of them were cool, really awesome. You no longer trigger a free attack when disengaging, move double speed, stuff like that. Some of them felt very, very, very situational. And while I was a little bit more ambivalent about my class, was because I got to choose a move, and that was it. There was no managing it within the game at all. There was kind of, I hope this comes up and is relevant, and I still had that same move list at any point. So I could have picked essentially the same move to start with as I was at the end. Most moves did have a second level, a regular level, and a mastery level if I put 2 XP points into it. But for go through this and pick the most exciting move, it felt like it would get stale really fast if I had to make another fixer, because I would have always considered to be certain moves to be just straight up better than others. It was the one part that I felt was a little lackluster for my class.
Yeah, you kind of collect the fixers thing from what I'm reading and interpreting seems to be collecting passive bonuses over time. Like increase inventory, like they're not just numbers, but they are relatively passive abilities. You no longer can take attacks opportunity when you leave people. You can re-roll a check once per session. That's a bit more active than most of the others. Backstab is a thing. Extra inventory space is a thing. Lower prices are things. Like
you're collecting the Infinity Stones, basically.
Yeah,
exactly. And in some cases, some of those passives really, really useful. And in other cases, I picked up Steely Resolve, advantage on spirit checks when we're trying to resist panicking, because I knew we were going into a body horror thing. Does it ever come up?
Nope.
Nope.
Did I spend 20 XP to get it? Yep. So it starts to feel, oh, good, a level up. That definitely, my skill mattered to that. Which, yeah.
Some of
Fixer is
the
very cool and then kind of peters out as you keep leveling.
because you can pick the ones you want the most. You'll pick first.
Yeah, like the most generically applicable ones, like disengaging for free. You're gonna pick first, and then like later level ones, you pick the dregs of like, I guess this could be situationally useful.
Exactly.
Yep. I wouldn't. It's a bit. I'm hesitant to give designer feedback. Also, it's printed. It's not actually going to change. But maybe a house rule for the fixer might be to like say you can't get the second level of abilities until like level 3 to 5, so that you have things you actually still want to get. Then it's technically a nerf. It might still be good to make it feel better to play as you advance.
Yeah, it would make a high level fixer feel like I spent my time and effort making this fixer high level instead of having them be ablative and killed off way too easily. Which is, that would feel cool.
Speaking of getting killed off too easily.
Speaking of ablative characters, the only character that can self-destruct.
Yeah, so Warlock interacts with the Elder Ink, the money. So if you go, I would like to cast spell, you go, but you gotta pay me first.
Yeah.
So you inhale the money, and it gets turned into a spell.
The money becomes vapor. You smoke the money away, and your mind briefly expands, and you cast a spell. What spell, you may ask? That's a very good question.
Oh, I
love
I'm a
random
big fan of the spell
tables.
system.
This is not the first game I've seen with random spell systems, and I love all of them. I love because it really evokes the concept from OSR games where you roll on a random table for your spell. Now, having played too many fantasy games and games that come from that, those spells aren't exciting for me anymore. They don't have the same juice that they once did. The randomly generated spell effect does provide that juice once again.
Yes. So when you make a warlock, and also as a warlock, if you inhale 50 drops or $50 worth of ink,
which
you
is
could learn a new spell.
Yeah, it's not chump change, but it's not
No,
too much. Also,
yeah. You get to roll on the spell names table. So you roll a d4, you get noun form, adjective noun, adjective form, or form of adjective noun.
It's a whole spreadsheet. It's
a whole sheet, and it's pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even remember what my first spell was on my first character. It was something bad, I think.
Yeah, but the ability to get a horrible spell is important.
Yes, because when you have a spell, what do you do with it?
You have to inhale to cast it, and you also you have to kind of be imaginative in how you use it, right? So, for instance, my first spell was Vortex of Blinding Fire.
On this character.
Metal. Yeah, on this character. And that was almost always just offensive, right? But then you also get things like Steam Silhouette. Like, okay, what do I do with Steam Silhouette? I used it to turn to steam and get through a weird
puzzle.
puzzle.
Yeah. It's
So it definitely like rewards very I don't want to just say imaginative, but
creative thinking. Actually.
Creative play, thank
creative
you.
application.
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit.
Yeah.
This just occurred to me, and it's not a one-to-one, but it reminds me a bit of the Aragon magic system, where sometimes when they're spending, they're like, yeah, you can say this word, and if you can make this word that you say work with the effect you want to do, it'll work.
Yeah. It definitely relies on the magical concept of intent to like shape whatever the spell you're doing.
But-
With the like game system of like the randomly generated titles. I like, speaking of efficiency in this game, I like that it cuts the whole argument out by just saying, explain it to me, little wizard boy, as opposed to trying to read a spell description and then rules lawyer the spell description into what you want it to do. It cuts that whole argument out and just says, explain it to me, wizard boy, and then you have to explain it or you can't do it.
Can I use lightning
like
bolt
that.
to start a fire? Because it's not fired. Yeah, you avoid all of that.
Yeah.
And
then
all of it's nonsense. Just explain it to me.
And then the GM
and then
says,
depending on the potency, it's how many drops it costs.
yeah, GM
And if you
says,
don't
all
have enough-
right.
Yeah. So the minimum is 2d6 drops. The maximum is 46 times 25 drops.
Yeah.
So if you want to say, I would like to use lightning bolt
you can do
to
that.
shatter the mood.
Yeah.
You can do
There's a
that.
price for
You're
that.
just gonna. Well, there's no such thing as overdose, but you're gonna overdose your bank account.
Yeah. So
well, there is actually such a thing as overdose, because if you run out of, I don't have the money, but I've already cast a spell, that comes out of your
That's
hit points.
underdosing. Actually, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You didn't
Not enough
smoke
gasoline.
enough gas, so it takes it from you instead.
Yeah, it comes out of your hit points, and it would be fine if you had a lot of hit points, but
You don't.
at
You
character
never get a
creation,
lot of
you
hit
roll
points.
2d4.
And
I think at the end of the game, I had 10 hit points.
I think the max
after
you can
leveling
have
up
is
3
16 or
times.
something. You can only ever have
and
like
that's
16
if
hit points.
Yeah, you're not. You get to pick when you level up. Do you get hit points or do you get stronger?
Mhm.
You get some hit points and skills, or more hit points is effectively, I think, your two choices. I think you always get a couple hit points, but not many. If
I think
you
it's
want
always like
skills.
at least +2.
Yeah.
And
You
one
don't
thing
get a
that
lot.
should be known is, it starts with 2b4. That is not dependent on class. You can be a fighter with 2 hit points. You can be a wizard with 8. I was lucky and ended up being a fixer with like 8 to start with. So, congratulations.
Yeah, and I want to pause on that point for a second. It's very important to me. In most OSR games, you outlevel the danger pretty quickly in the first few levels, as your HP multiplies each level by your level 3 is 3 times as much HP as level 1.
Yeah.
Not here.
No.
If you rolled really low, that might technically be true, but that's because you're going from 2 hit points to 6. That's
To
still
4?
not a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when guns do 1d12. So even if you are a very high level character,
magical moon guns do 1d12.
It doesn't matter to the book. It's a
fist.
standard weapon of the book.
A
Not standard.
fist punching someone does 1d4. You
Yeah.
can punch a character to death with 1 hit if you didn't even have a weapon.
Yeah. People
You
are
can be
fragile, and
death
you will
with your
never
own
not be
fist.
fragile. Kind of.
And then just to cap off the warlock, at level 2, you can smell money. So you're like, I'm an ink fiend. I can smell the money. Where's the money? And then as you level up, level 3, when you get a new spell, you can, instead of rolling on the table for everything, you go, I'm going to take one part of the spell I know, and then roll for the rest.
Yeah, you want Steam Silhouette? Let's go with Blinding Silhouette.
Yeah. And then the higher level features just make it more like
More spells.
more spells,
More
more
better
spells, and
spells.
more. What's the word? Like it's
You just get
more
better at
consistent,
magic.
more
Better-
consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't... This
The
is
real
high-level
level up
wizard stuff.
is learning spells.
Because you don't get better spells over time, you just get better at using your spells over time.
Yeah.
Because there are no spell
Yeah.
levels.
And puzzle boxes. The other
and Rubik's cubes.
The Rubik's cubes the warlocks can build to get special spell scrolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just you put a spell in a puzzle box, You know how to operate the puzzle box to unleash the spell. But what's cool is if you kill a wizard, you could steal his puzzle box and decode it and get a spell out
Not
of
that you have
it.
any experience with that.
No.
No.
I would
He
never
didn't have a
murder
puzzle box on
someone
him?
for their magic. I would never murder someone for a Rubik's Cube.
No,
No.
never.
You'd
I
murder
wouldn't
someone for other
download a
things and then
card.
happen to find the Rubik's Cube and take it too.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the Warlock.
That is the Warlock. Let's talk about combat, because we started talking about it before we got distracted.
Yes.
We got distracted by talking about it.
Fight.
You fight things. What's a hit roll? Who needs them?
Um,
Turns out
you
we
don't
never
roll-
needed
you
them.
just
don't. Yeah, you never
And-
use them. It's great. I love it. It's so much better than like, oh, I missed. No, everyone stabs everyone.
It was an amazing feel to the system. I think this is the first and only system I've ever done that in, but it made every single swing feel really impactful. It made me feel fragile because I knew if I got hit, it wasn't a matter of if I got hit, it was for how much I got hit. And because your HP was so low, like I think the first roll of our first ablative wizard loss was, I'm sorry, someone just rolled 2d6 and got double sixes. You can't survive that no matter what. And there is no did it miss, it just hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're dead now.
But on the other side, you also always hit them. That means any
Which
surprise
feels
round,
fun.
if you ambush someone, or if they ambush you, that really, really matters.
Yeah, it's great.
It felt really good. It felt powerful both ways, and it made combat quicker and more interesting.
Yeah.
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 The
There
only
is
thing
some
that'll
defense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is you have like armor you could buy, or like hellbits. There's like armor value, but then there are some things to get around it.
And it works like flat damage reduction.
Yeah.
And crits are really interesting in how they interact with that as well.
Yeah, crits just ignore armor
And you-
instead of like doubling your dice or whatever, which is nice. I like that. It's simpler.
And in this case, because there is no hit roll, you crit by rolling max damage. A crit becomes max damage plus ignore armor. So it's pretty straightforward, but if you crit someone, unless it's like a D4, it probably kills them.
Yeah. The move economy was really simple. It was you can move and then you can do something. And then it's someone else's turn.
Yep. This uses
Yeah,
zone-based combat. So moving was very straightforward, and you kind of played it by ear. It worked really well in dungeons. In some other areas that didn't have, like this game still, it doesn't track things by 5 feet by 5 feet, but it is still a pretty space-oriented game as opposed to, sort of, you still want to know the area around you. You still want to know where you can go. You still want to ask questions about what you see. Having a rough map helps a lot in combat with just like, okay, this zone represents this place and this place and this place.
Yeah, and it also having your initiative be tied to what weapon you're using, I think also was really helpful.
Yeah, because as we said, acting first really matters. You can do things like I'm gonna use a slow weapon and go last, but that's because I want them to come to me first because they can't reach me, I think. Then I'll
To
hit
be
them once they're in
clear,
range.
the initiative system was very, very simple. You roll a d10, and assuming you're not using a weapon, just as a default, if you beat a 5, you go before the monster. If you roll above your number, you go after the monster. And within those 3 pools of before, monster, or after, pick whatever you're doing, whatever order, doesn't matter.
Yep. NPCs don't have initiative. Even if you have allied NPCs with you, they will go at the same time as the enemy NPCs. So it's very straightforward. There's a degree of risk. Going faster is often comes with a drawback of potentially not doing something as hard. Heavier hitting weapons tend to be slower.
Yeah, it's like the fastest weapon is a sling, and the slowest weapon is like a giant hammer.
Yeah.
It was also sometimes not beneficial to go first because for me, with the zone combat, being in the same zone as someone else mattered a lot. So if I went first, that meant I was spending my time moving towards them instead of spending my time getting away from them. So there was a little bit of strategic value there that I couldn't know what was going to happen depending on what the initiative was, and sometimes I wanted to go last.
It also means
Yeah,
that sometimes with the right strategy and dice, you get double turns. Monster moves up to you, you go after them. Next round, you go before them. You went twice before they went.
Yeah. It's cool. It has all of the like gritty tactical combat stuff you want without having to count squares. No little I move like a knight. No, it's just you still get all the tactics without needing to like break out a measuring tape.
Yeah, and
Because
having
even we've
played,
played like
We played Lancer.
even with like Pathfinder,
We played
we were
Pathfinder.
measuring. We were measuring taping in Pathfinder to be like, where can I put myself so my spell hits, but I'm far enough away, blah blah blah. This ignores all of that, but still gives you enough like tactics that you can have a tactical plan and feel like you planned an attack without needing to like battle sim it.
yeah, like I was gonna say, having played games that do a zone-based combat thing in the past, like I remember Fantasy Flight Games does like you have like close, medium, far.
Range bands.
Yeah, like range bands.
Numenera.
This feels a lot better than range bands, right?
Yeah,
'Cause I
range
like,
bands are annoying because range bands float.
yeah,
Yeah.
like this is good because you're like, okay, I'm in this zone and I can hit out to this zone. But with a range band, you're like, okay, well, he moved here, so now he's this far. But if I move here, now how far is it from? Like you have to
Range
like
bands works
calculate.
fine for solo play.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like this. I like having a physical map, even if it's just like a
Even if it's
square.
just drawn on basically a
Yeah.
whiteboard,
Yeah.
works fine.
Yeah.
Well, you drop your little guy in the different chunks. You basically
Yeah.
get a map of a room, and then you by vibe alone draw lines in it. Like that's the
Yeah,
map.
it's just it's a grid, but instead of 5-foot squares, they're 20-foot squares, and it works.
Our
less
last
counting.
map ended up being just a 9x9 grid. Like it was a tic-tac-toe
with a hallway at
that
the end.
was
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and that was perfectly fine, and still created tactical and interesting play.
Yep. No, without diagonals. Diagonals would have ruined that, but there were no diagonals
Yeah.
in zones. At least in the one. I don't know if that's normal, but I
We
did it with no
switched back and
diagonals.
forth when we were playing with that. Sometimes we had diagonals, sometimes we didn't. In most
It just
maps,
depends on
it
the
didn't
map.
matter.
Yeah.
Because if we could diagonal, so could the monsters, X, Y, and so it was still interestingly tactical. The smaller your map is, the less that works, but still.
It worked well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you have
combat.
armor. Damage is based on your weapon. Speed is based on your weapon used. How do
Yeah.
weapons and items work?
Oh yeah. You have
like the
item
inventory
slots.
system.
Yeah. I think we have a few opinions about it, but you had item slots. You had like your two hands, or if you got a third arm, you got a third hand. You get one item per hand. You get one item on your head. Right? No,
I think you got
head
like
didn't
2 on your
count.
chest.
Sorry, it was 2 on your body. So if it was
Yeah.
either like something on
That's
your
why
belt,
helmets are free.
yeah, something on your belt and a helmet, or yeah, but
And
it
then,
was
like, your
2 on your
backpack.
body and your backpack, which had 6. Pretty hard cap inventory system that didn't include any stat differential or anything. So pretty simple, but on the other hand, it made me feel like I couldn't loot.
Yeah.
think
It was a big part of the system that made me like, I'm enjoying this game. Oh, I have to inventory manage. And it really kind of pulled me out of it. It was the one thing where, hey, if I were host ruling this, forget this. Ignore that.
Like I like
Yeah. it might be assuming
limited inventory in theory.
it might work
like-
better with more people, so you basically have more like empty slots between everyone. It might also be a trade-off in terms of survivability versus carrying capacity for armor taking.
That's why I was lamenting about the wizard having to carry too many things. They had to carry their puzzle boxes, they had to carry their inhalers, they had to carry their spell money. Like, the wizards had too many things to carry, or they had to carry their
Did the
backup
puzzle
weapon. Like, the
box take
wizards
up an
had too
entire
much.
slot?
It does. Yeah, it doesn't. You have to put it in your bag or on your chest. Like it doesn't matter.
It takes
It's
up
like
a
an
whole slot.
inventory slot.
Wow.
Everything took
Yeah.
up slots. And so
Which is
I went
is
into
fine.
a dungeon fully loaded with just core essentials of things I think I'd need. And then I get loot and I'm like, okay, I have to trade what I think is really important for this loot. And that was kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it put us in the headspace of like in the first dungeon, like, okay, we should just kill everything and then we don't have to worry about how we carry stuff out. Or, like it puts us in a headspace where we need to basically like neutralize everything in order to be like, we could take everything out now.
That includes your 6 backpack slots?
Yeah.
Wow.
They
So
filled up fast.
all right.
Um,
Again,
Yeah.
I'm the least educated about this part because I didn't actually do it. I'm just like, oh yeah, you have
Yeah.
10 total slots,
Yeah,
2 hand, 2 body, 6 backpack.
yeah, they
Or if
filled
you
up
get more
real
hands.
fast.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Because
They did.
my body was full of armor, but I had a 2-handed weapon. That's 4 of my 10 slots right there.
Fair.
And then I had 2
One of them
trophies.
would be money.
So that's 2 more of my so I have 4 slots less, and then I have food, I have
Money.
a toolkit, money, and a light. That's all of my items I can't loot.
That's fair.
Unless I'm
Yeah.
dragging a sack on the ground like a fool.
Yeah. It does mention,
And there
even in the
weren't
thing,
options for that.
first sentence is how many slots you have. Second sentence is to carry more items, hire someone or buy a cart or a pack animal. I think
But in
Yeah.
a lot of
I
the
think it half
dungeons that
expects
we
you
were
to.
going into, it doesn't sure, a pack animal will get stuff from dungeon
yeah.
to home, but it did not make sense to get a hireling or a pack animal or a cart in the dungeon where we were fighting, and that was where we were having the trouble.
Yep.
yeah. It
No, I
it
see what you
almost
mean.
wants you to have to make the economic choice of what to get, but they don't give you enough slots to have to make that choice.
We
Yeah.
kind of, but didn't really have a scene where you guys ran away from someone. Like we did, but we didn't have you run away and have to
Right.
make a choice of what to leave behind.
I mean, I left my companions behind.
Yeah,
They-
that's what the choice
Discretion.
was.
They don't take up carrying capacity.
They give you carrying capacity.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting to know how the items work. I don't know if there was a better alternative. Lots of
Henchmen.
its
If you
that
wanna
you
keep
have
the
have
system-
3 uses
The
each.
first entry of Henchmen is 1 cost per day, holds light sources, leads pack animals, carries 12 items worth of 12 slots
They can carry
worth of
more
items.
than you. Hirelings can carry more than you at 12 versus 10.
That's
Amazing.
what you were. Well, they can't fight. Is I think the trade-off. We're designed for combat. They're designed to carry.
Yeah.
I think that's. You're right. The game's specific intention to resolve that problem is hire someone, you idiot.
Which is a normal
I-
OSR thing that we never did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do like how
I hired
in-
someone.
I
To help
offered
with
hirelings,
horse.
I think.
you did. I do like how you could just graft extra arms onto you like
Flesh
General Grievous.
grafting in the game, in the second book, flesh grafting is very much very mundane. It's seen like cybernetics in Cyberpunk, and it's seen as safe as cybernetics in Cyberpunk. Organ rejection is apparently not a thing in this world.
Yeah, it's a way to fix. We'll talk about scars, but it's a way to fix scars that you get from adventuring, and it's also a way to do weird level up stuff. Where it's I need more hands so I can wield both my bow and a long sword.
Yep.
Because of how common it is, I don't know if this is in the book, but I do really hope that there's a trigger warning quite early on about it, just because flesh crafting is cool. I don't think any of us had any issues with it, but it was pervasive, and if you do have issues with it, it was everywhere.
In this
Yeah.
book's defense, the only picture included is a guy with 3 arms and a jar of eyeballs and some tubes of stuff. There wasn't any super gory imagery attached to it.
I
The
think you
dungeon
could
itself
easily
was a
play the
big
game
thing.
without that, but
Oh, you totally could.
Yeah, it's just be careful because it's very embedded in the setting, and you need to know
Yeah.
to take it out.
Yep. Let's finish off
I'm
items
just
before
taking
we
a
talk
picture
about
of
things.
these rats.
Every
I'm just taking a
item.
picture of these rats, and they're just creepy.
Nice. I think every item has 3 uses. There's no not all. So every item has exactly 3 usage shots. You mark it off as you use them. Not all items use their uses in the same way, but you'll never have to track differing amounts of okay, this has 10 uses, this has 5, this has 3. Everything's 3. Weapons and armor, 50% chance per combat, entire fight, that you might use 1. Torches, you use 1 as you explore, which we'll get to. Rations, you use them when you use them. There are you get extra healing from rations. Toolkits, you
Yeah,
use them
the items
for...
decay. That's pretty a modern OSR mechanic.
How easy was it to track, though?
found it
It's
a
fairly
little
easy.
easy and hard at the same time, because for like torches, I'm counting from 3 down to 0 because that makes sense to me. I'm running out of torches. Whereas for weapons, I was somehow counting up, and that just got mixed up to me in my mind. I think it was a me thing, but
Oh, I was counting down
I
with my weapons too.
I was counting. Well, what I did is I made little boxes. When I typed a new item into my thing, I just put 3 empty,
Like square
bracketed
brackets.
boxes
Yeah.
and just put an X in each bracket as I used an item. That is honestly a mechanic that works better on pencil and paper, because you can just
Yeah.
put 3 little tick marks by each item as you go. In a way that is a little bit more tedious, having to flip through the. Well, it's just that Roll20 didn't have a character sheet, so we just typed them
Yeah.
out. It was basically just a
Yeah.
Word document.
Yep.
and for me, the addition of 0 into that 1 to 3 system sometimes really messed me up. But that would be really
yeah, they
easily
could
fixed
stay
by
at
a good way
0.
of doing it, or just a
Yeah, just
straight up
3
quick
check
character
boxes or
sheet.
something next to it.
Yeah.
Or 3 X
I
X
like that the
boxes.
stuff breaks. It gives you an incentive to buy more things in a way that 5th edition doesn't, or other games don't, where it's like, I got this sword, and until I get the laser sword of Hellfire, we're not gonna leave this trusty iron sword behind. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. You use it to pry open a steel door and cut through a bone behemoth. It's trash.
Yeah.
You never spend any time repairing. It's garbage. It's done.
Yeah, one of the best swords in the game, of which we got 3 of by the end of the game. Is basically super strong. Ignores armor, really good. Breaks a lot more quickly.
It was a
On
good
a
way to
crit, it
balance
breaks.
On a
super
crit,
hard
it spends a
items.
use, and it still has the normal end of combat. It has a 50% chance of spending a use. So,
It was a good way to balance items where it's like, this is strong, but it still breaks.
fragile.
So maybe you want to spend the $5 on the spear instead.
Did the money taking up inventory space, unless you pay someone to store it for you, did that matter to you in our campaign?
I really did not like the way that the money went. Again, we had the problems with too much inventory space. 100 drops was a full space, get another one. There was a bank that we could put our money in, but then we didn't have access to it, and I'm pretty sure it cost us to put it in the bank and to take it out
And
of the
take it
bank.
out.
Yeah, the
It
bank
did
Which is
not.
just like, no.
It did not. It only cost. That's a different thing that we encountered.
That was the magic
recently.
box.
Maybe, yeah.
That was the
that
magic-
was the genie thing or whatever.
That was the dimensional storage of
Yeah,
spending all your money.
we found
Right,
that. The evil bag of holding from that third party thing took.
Still, I do remember having to pay money at some point
There
to
is
the
a
bank.
there's a money changing thing where you can change your drops into drop representative sticks that
Oh,
are
yeah.
lighter, but you can't use them to cast spells, making them already a immediate negative.
Yeah, because money is needed to cast spells, and remember, 50 drops equals a spell. 100 drops is an inventory slot, and you can go through easily 100 drops in an adventure. So our wizard was like needing to pack around ridiculous amounts of ink, and that took up more inventory. And we couldn't just say, okay, we're switching it into these drop things, because then the wizard couldn't use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
If we were
I was
to
like,
slightly,
I don't need to carry out drops if I just get new spells.
Yeah.
Like, fine.
Honestly, getting a hireling is probably our best thing we would have done if thinking
Yep.
about it. I was like, we could increase our inventory
Yeah.
size. No, just get a hireling. It's not very expensive.
Yeah.
$1 a day.
Yeah, $1 an adventure.
Way
Yeah.
cheaper than paying a bank.
Yep.
It was $15 a month. There was a discount if you paid for the month. We paid
For
15.
the hireling?
Yeah.
Excellent. But there's a bit more. I think stuff happens when you die,
Oh, yes.
or rather, when you almost definitely die, because you have a.
Oh yeah, you die and then you roll the "Did you really die?" table.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 1 in.
50%.
Is it a 50%? I think
Is
it's a D10. Is it a D6 or a
No,
D10?
it's a D6.
Oh yeah, D6.
When you're at death's door, must roll a D6.
50% chance of dying when you die.
Yeah. When you become 0, you're on death's door. Roll a d6. On a 1 to 3, you die. On a 4, you are basically dead unless someone comes
dying.
and helps you. You're dying.
Yeah.
And then you roll on the permanently marred table.
So you're dying for 10 minutes until someone needs to help you within that. 10 minutes is a rough thing. This is a turn. That's not a turn in combat. That's a dungeon turn, exploration turn thing.
Which was kind of interesting, because at one point, if we'd had 2 people go down and only 1 person was up,
You could
it
only tree
was
one
a
of them.
Sophie's choice of which person are you going to save.
Yep.
I feel the same way about this Scar table as I do about most other Scar tables. They feel like they're overly punitive in such a way that I will make a new character rather than lose a hand slot.
Depends which scar you get, but yes.
There's only one good Scar.
There's
There's only
no,
one good.
Scarred at number 6. You get advantage when intimidating
2
others.
good Scars.
Doomed isn't
Um,
bad at 4. It's basically nothing
Some of them are
happens.
some of them are like reasonable and you can deal with, but some of them are bad, and it just feels like it's so easy to die already. You just get sent on a doom spiral. I would prefer, honestly, if like retired was half of these options. It's like you can't ink seek anymore because you have a shattered leg. Like,
Yes. Part of my designer brain is like, but we already we don't have a problem with ablative characters, and that is a feature of OSR games. But if we made this too good, it would be an actual meat grinder of like throw people into the furnace and the few with the good scars survive and come back.
Yeah, I do like rating the number 7 chronic wound. That's permanently reduce your HP by 2. If this reduces your HP to 0, you just die. So
Yeah,
you
if you
roll
roll
to
minimum hit
survive,
points.
and then you roll again, and you're like, oh, I'm just dead anyway.
Yep.
and
thought
it
you'd
makes it
survived,
hard
but
for you to
actually you
heal.
didn't. And it makes
Yeah,
it
it
hard
makes
for
it
you to
hard to
heal.
heal,
Yeah,
too.
no, some of these are weird. And then number 10 is fascinating because you just suddenly are touched by death and can feel spirits
Yeah.
around here.
I got that, and then that character died.
Died, yeah.
Yeah, you got that, and then you went down a second time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I
Um,
rolled a 2, I think. And died.
There's a real simple mechanic for if you're hungry, thirsty, tired, all rolled into one.
Yep, pretty straightforward. It's good. I don't know if we know to go
Yep.
down that and word burn. Ability drain is a thing. Yeah.
Nope.
Oh,
Ability
advancement.
drain, everyone hates it.
Advancement is good.
Is
It's
it?
pretty simple.
It is simple, I'll give you that.
Simple, yes,
There's-
but sounds like we
there's
have
like-
different opinions on good.
I like it.
There's like
As the
5
person
questions.
who doesn't actually have to deal with the advancement and isn't the one advancing, I like it.
I like it in concept.
I never bothered to actually figure out what the advancement triggers were. It was kind of a cool, okay, roll dice, but
End of session
could-
questions are basically how it
Yes.
works.
Yeah. They're end of session questions. Based on your answers, you have varied dice that you roll. You roll them all in a big pile, and you take the highest number. You get that many experience points. The thing is, though, there are 5 questions. The highest die size is a D8, so that means an average of 5. It would be just as efficient to go down the list and ask yes or no and get 1 XP per yes or no. You get statistically the same result in experience if you did it that way.
That's fair.
the dice were neat, but just in general, I kind of ignored the entire system, and that didn't hurt at all. And so I'd like to actually have a system that is engaging me in some way.
Yeah, I like the first question of did you find any treasure, and you
Good
get
OSR
more
question.
Increasing
more
size.
Good.
XP per treasure.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a good OSR question. The next one is goal-based, which would be cool if there was goals in this game.
Yeah, beyond what's already in the end of session stuff.
That's the only mention of goals.
If I was to tweak something, now that the second book is up and has downtime faction stuff, I would make one about factions.
That's probably
But
fair.
it's super easy to tweak these
learning.
sessions. Yeah, learning.
Yeah, learning, good. Great thing to be... Because, I don't know, I think we all subscribe to the idea that game rewards behavior that it wants. So learning,
This
that's a
one's
good thing
almost
to
the
reward.
gimme, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is why it's a D4.
That's why it's the D4, yeah. Meaningful relationship or faction, that's good.
There it is.
Being on death's door, concerning.
To survive
Though
being on death's door.
It does say
So
survive.
again, it
True,
does
but
lean into what the
concerning.
game wants you to do. It makes making
Yep.
a new character ridiculously easy. It gives you low HP. It tells you that anytime you hit, you're hit. So yeah, being on Death's Door, it does kind of want you to do this. This is not a game for you to take one character and drive them to the end.
I think it depends for me. This might be this one question might be less like you should do this and more okay, you survived this, here's an extra like here's some flowers next to your hospital
That's
bed.
fair. That's fair.
Like you got a
Um,
scar, it probably sucks. Here's some extra XP to help with it.
Yeah.
Except it might not be extra XP, and this is what is changing my mind to make me agree that the dice rolls might not work. Because if that new D6 you get rolls lower than any of the other numbers, you don't actually
It doesn't
get
matter. Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. I feel like the yes no.
That one should be maybe like a D10, honestly.
Yeah.
And then there's the MVP bonus.
The MVP bonus, which I did like.
Yeah. Very simple.
You pick someone to get a bonus XP every session.
For any arbitrary reason, which it gives several examples.
Including bringing drinks and snacks.
Yep.
Yeah. Or more realistically, strategic bonuses mid-dungeon. Who can get a level
yeah, that's how you did it.
Mid-dungeon. You will be the most valuable. I wrote a note. I kind of want bounty XP in this game.
I don't remember
you're
that
rewarding
term.
like in Power by the Apocalypse, where you can shift people's labels to direct their actions.
Yeah.
Like you're not forcing their hand, but you're incentivizing them to do stuff. I feel like that would be fun in a setting like this. Or it's like, I want you to do something. I don't know. Not use your Vorpal blade and only beat the bugs to death with your bare fists. Things like that, I think could be fun and silly.
There's a very important part of languages we didn't talk about, and it's important to talk about. The interpretation roll table.
Oh.
Yes, that was such a good table.
That was a good one, yes.
So
there was languages people didn't speak.
Yep, if you're talking to someone and you don't speak each other's language, it's not just hand waved, that you roll a d10. If you spend I probably should have mentioned this before because I didn't see it. If you spend at least a day trying to learn the basics of the language, you get advantage on the roll. I don't think that ever happened, but I could have mentioned it.
No.
We did actually. We spent
the bug
some
language.
time trying to learn language on the traveling.
For the bug. Oh, yes.
But I think that we used that as
that
just
was only
facilitating
once.
even the ability to try and use that.
But there's lots. You roll a d10. On a 1 to 2, the message gets across correctly. 3 to 4, partly unclear or misunderstood. 5 to 6, the opposite of your intent is received. 7 to 9, it's incomprehensible. And a 10, which was rolled, I think, more than once, maybe?
Yeah.
It was rolled at least twice.
The message comes across as an insult.
It happened at the very beginning, and it happened at the very end of the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also like general, you're meeting an NPC, what do they think about you? Are they helpful or are they not? Because that treats us quite well.
Reaction rolls are fascinating in this. And the game very much, like it should, treats it like it's not reaction rolls are not mind control. If an enemy is friendly, they are as friendly as is feasible. And that might be giving you a warning and letting you run away from them in terror. That's them being friendly instead of ambushing you. So, it worked well.
Yeah, there's one more thing I was looking at our list I wanted to bring up with spells and magic. For some reason, spells don't, penetrate armor. So, more than once, I would roll a big spell to hit a bunch of guys that had a little bit of armor, and leave them all with 1 HP because of their armor.
Yeah, that happened twice. You did a big AoE attack, and they're like, cool, they all have 1 or 2 hit points. Yep, okay. Once they had 3 hit points, you wouldn't have killed them either way. But still.
Fair. Yeah, I feel like spells should be armor pen, and I don't think that would be too much of a buff.
Yeah,
I feel like that's more of a fault in the sentencing of armor than it is in the spell.
Yeah. It's pretty easy to house rule that if you want to.
Yeah.
Another aspect of the game is travel and exploration. You're spending time exploring dungeons and occasionally. So let's talk about long distance travel first because we did that only once, and I think it was pretty get it out of the way.
We rolled really uneventfully. I actually did like that, but I can't feel like we have anything to say because I think it was roll a d10 to see what happens. And we rolled the same result. 3 out of 4 times, and that result was eat more food.
Yeah.
So it could be really cool, but we didn't really interact with it enough to know.
So on the D6, you can get a random encounter on a result of 2 or 3, and everything else either reduces or increases the number of days it takes, or takes rations away from you. Everything else is some degree of resource management. But that's
I
still a
actually did like that.
1/3 chance of a random encounter. We just didn't get any, even though we rolled
Yeah.
like 4 times.
Is there a random encounter table there too, or is that just something you have to make up?
I would probably make it up based on. Oh no, each biome, each region has a D20 encounter table.
Okay.
So
Cool.
So we just got unlucky.
you just got
basically.
unlucky. You could have.
Or
hold
lucky.
on. Let me go.
Or lucky, that's true.
Yeah. What are these all terrible encounters? The Electrum Sea. That's where you're traveling from. A large sand crab rummaging through the remnants of a merchant cart. A mysterious cloaked traveler joins you on the road. Okay, no, these would have been awesome. Never mind. We need, yeah.
Ooh, a body falls from the sky.
Oh, speaking of Morrowind.
That's so Morrowind.
Yep.
I've never played Morrowind. I know that's in Morrowind. That's all I know about.
It's like the first thing you
That-
see after you leave the starting
Yeah.
village after being there for 5 minutes.
It's that and Dagoth because he's all over TikTok now because of the Dagoth mod in Skyrim.
I can see that.
Yep.
Oh, it's so funny.
A warlock meditating among the dunes offers to read your fortunes. Yeah, no. Okay. So, now that we're looking at it a bit more, we didn't experience much with the travel system. These random encounters would have totally made it good.
Instead,
I mean,
we just got
I didn't
hungry.
find it bad. I did actually like the resource management. It was a matter of, does this matter? Did we bring enough rations? And because we weren't dealing with inventory space, it was a matter of how greedy are we feeling about spending
you had a
money
cart.
on this stuff. And that made the resource management interesting, especially with the other option being lengthening or shortening the trip, again affecting that resource management. So you could plan,
Yep.
and it was a push your luck system.
And my hypothetical complaint was that it was only resource management as far as I could tell. Turns out that's not true. Luck was just not on our side for adding in the other half of this, other third of it. Okay. There's also dungeon exploring. This is a GM thing, which I'll mention here.
That was just dungeons.
Anytime you're exploring an adventure site, or whenever you take a short rest, I secretly roll the d6. I had a macro for this in Roll20, actually, to do it. This is pretty straightforward. Half the time, nothing happens. One result, usually a 3. You lose some torchlight, which I occasionally told you, like, mark some torchlight. Mark 1 use in your torch.
Yeah.
Okay.
On a 1, you got a random encounter, which depended on the site. Each, like, adventure said, here's some random encounters. On a 2, though, you got a sign of an encounter. This may be a common thing. I don't run many OSR games. But basically,
I have never seen encounter sign before.
yeah, encounter sign is you get a random encounter, but it's not there yet. You get literally signs of it, like distant noises or stuff like that. It is around. It's not next door. It's not like a random encounter plus you have a preparation round or something like that. It's some things nearby. Next time you roll this result, it becomes that random encounter. So it basically doubles the chance of a random encounter.
Okay.
It makes this place feel. I really like this because it makes the areas you're exploring feel lived in, and like things. You're not just finding emptiness and creatures. You're finding the signs and like passage of creatures and things like that. And lots of those random encounter things for adventure sites say, here's some signs that you might see. Here's things you might hear, or things that might leave behind in a different area, things like that. Like the game supplies you with just a few short words, that's all you need, of bringing the dungeon to life, is what I will say. So, from a GM, that works really well. That's basically most of the big rules. We already talked about downtime, I think. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah.
I don't think.
There was
we made a
downtime.
lot of personal projects. They were cool. We really liked our personal projects because of the clocks that personal projects started. And I don't know if clocks are really a thing for the game or if that was something we imported. It felt like we
No, they
didn't
have
have
the-
enough downtime. So I'd say that house ruling it to how much downtime to personal preference of your players in game to kind of make that balance feel right would be important.
Yeah, this
That's
game
fair.
didn't have a hard downtime thing. It very much felt like when you get to town, you can take a month or you can go to the next adventure. And those are
Yeah.
your two choices.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we talked about interludes though.
No, yeah, there's sort of like if you play Blades in the Dark, it's kind of like the what is it? I almost said entrapments, but on entanglements roll. Where when you get back, 1 in 6 chance of nothing happening, but things can change. Complications that affect you. There is shift is one of the results. 3 to 4. Locations, factions, or NPCs change. The seer, aka the GM, determines them themselves or rolls on the shift table. I've never even looked at this because we didn't happen to roll this result when we did an interlude. We got nothing happens twice. No, we got a whisper. So. No, we got a whisper once. The rumor, because that led you to your last adventure.
Oh right, yeah.
That was the only one we got.
But yeah, there's some like world events table. It's decent. It manages to. It does a decent job of like keeping it generic enough for the GM to do what they want. Except for number 6 on the shift is bone spores basically attack. That's the specific one.
Great.
Cool.
Yep. Cities
Apocalypse.
introduce strict quarantine measures. And yeah, it's going to last for a while. So.
I will say this about downtime, at least for me. It felt like I did my puzzle box, and I would like, why would I ever do anything but make a puzzle box, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like every
it's just a free
downtime
spell.
action that wasn't benefiting your character felt like a waste. So like learning a new talent feels like a good thing. Getting my Dragon Breath trophy feels like a good thing. Crafting kind of felt like it's better to buy it and power up my character. Because, like, improving attributes is a downtime action. You can just get literally stronger.
Yeah, you have to spend money, though.
Yeah, but...
And then there's,
money
like,
was not something that was in short supply, because
yeah, we
with
had
the
money.
amount we were pulling out of dungeons, we had money.
Yeah, and then there's, like, building an institution also feels like...
waste of time.
Yeah.
A waste.
I could learn the blade. You were making friends, and I was studying the blade.
While you were making friends, I was making a Rubik's Cube that spat fire.
I don't know if that's better.
But yeah, it gave you enough to have a specific project, but there were too few downtime actions to actually make any progress on that project.
I am hearing different things from different people based on Jordan saying there's nothing else you wanted to do necessarily beyond the one thing you're already doing.
As a warlock, why would I ever make anything but a puzzle box to get free spells instead of spending the money?
It was just that downtime felt like there were definitely fun choices and optimal choices, and those two had a line down the middle.
Yeah. There's also part of that's the OSR mindset. I kind of want to say that's a generalization, but to a degree, D&D characters at large, I think, have a lot of like, let's always be productive and be like doing things. And one thing to note is, as far as I can tell, there isn't like a just chill out downtime action. That's also part of it.
Yeah. I do think part of this comes from... Yeah. I think part of this comes from the dissonance between the parts of the game. Parts of the game are distinctly set up for dungeon delving, which is very much a optimum choices only, please. And then parts of the game are set up to have more of a story, like randomly exploring. The exploring part we didn't really do, so I feel like some of these other downtime actions might have some more legs in a exploration style game, because things like carousing to alter, like carousing, gathering information, making NPCs like you. These all exist in different kinds of games than we just go into the dungeon.
Yeah. This isn't a game about the downtime. There's a reason this is in the second book, which is meant to be a lot more peripheral stuff. And I think that it wouldn't really work if this game was about downtime. I think that's also why we only get one downtime action per session. Like, if you got two, like you do in Blades in the Dark, it becomes a lot more quote-unquote about them. Also, I love, as I'm reading through the carousing results, that you get more XP if you get into trouble when carousing. You get 1 XP per 20 drops spent instead of 30.
Ooh.
So, but then you roll on the trouble table.
I think we should also mention our favorite table.
Yes, I have it. Our favorite table.
The loot the body table.
I loot the body is 2 tables, actually. You roll on a table to see what you find, and if the result is you roll a d20. If the result is a 20, which I think it was once? Maybe.
You found like a void glass blade shard or something.
Yeah. No, that's what it was. Some of the pre-written adventure rewards were from the artifacts. If you roll a 20 on the find things, it's an artifact. There's also a D10 artifacts. Some of the pre-made adventures was like, here's a specific artifact from that table. That's what it is.
Okay, got it.
But that is perfect for, I don't know what this thing has on him because it's a weird monster thing, so it's not going to have like pocket change or rope or like you find basic leather armor and a sword like every goblin or something like that.
Yeah.
So we want it to be weirder? Here, there's an Electrum key cube. There's an alien instrument, medical or musical.
Ooh.
Maybe both.
I didn't notice the medical or musical subtitle there.
There's a map to a secret stronghold. I used that. That's how you found the egg chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah, tons of different stuff. A small ceramic jar containing a captured spirit. And of course, we did find this one, a synthetic eye.
We did for your horse.
Yep, got it for your horse. Got its 4th eye, I think you said it was, or something.
Yeah, something ridiculous. The horse was
yes.
I remembered you saying you wanted to do it like the labyrinth guy. I think
it was a rear view
Pan's
camera on
Labyrinth.
the horse.
Oh no, rear view
Rear view.
That's
Yeah.
what it was.
Rear view camera of the horse, back of the head. Never sneak up on him.
Yep. So yeah,
horses have you seen a horse? They do lack a backup cam.
They do, and they could use one with like the rear kicks that they do sometimes.
Yeah, they get all flustered, but they have to like go backwards. A backup cam would work wonders for horse life.
Yep.
These base model horses without backup cam.
Yeah, you're inventing the world's first smart horse.
Smart horse. Everything in the horse is computer.
My horse just texted me, we're out of hay. My horse just texted me, he saw a bird.
Thing cars do? They text you they're out of gas? Oh, okay. I thought you were referencing...
I'm saying, but I'm assuming the horse can send personal messages as well.
Yeah. Well, of course, your horse will have fingers. Because what horse doesn't have fingers?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's just embedded in their mind. We've
have hooves,
taken stuff from the psychic rat.
Yeah, you took a brain from the psychic rat so it can communicate.
Oh yeah.
Either way,
work with what you got.
Yeah, weird side projects aside, I think I think it's hard to fit downtime into a dungeon adventuring game.
Yeah,
I think this game did a good middle ground job of it.
Unless you're doing the, you have to be really committed to do the one dungeon whole campaign.
Oh, the mega dungeon type of campaign?
Well, there's the mega dungeon, which is one version of that. The other version is there is a dungeon and there is town, but the dungeon is too big to do in one go. You need to level up, you need to hire people, etc., etc. So the dungeon is your whole campaign where you keep returning to the font of evil of the dungeon. Keep on the Borderlands is like the one that is the most archetypical of this. And this game kind of feels like it wants to do that, where you go to dungeon, but not the same dungeon. But you're supposed to be going back and forth from town a lot, is where it feels like the downtime's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, when you return to town, you hang out for a bit.
Yeah.
But I
That's
don't know.
fair.
It doesn't explicitly say that, but that's the vibe I get.
With how long travel time takes, like it takes weeks to travel to the edge of each region. A couple weeks, not like 8, but like 2. It would end up being 2 weeks to the dungeon, spend a day or two in the dungeon, 2 weeks back. That's about a month downtime. Like if you do that, it's about 50-50.
That's fair. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
What else do we have to talk about? I think this is the game.
I don't know. That's the
GMing
bulk
was.
of it. It's not very long.
We'll talk about the pre-made adventures, and we'll talk about GMing. Then we're good.
Yeah,
I think
they were fun. The 2 pre-made adventures were fun. They were thematically adjacent. They felt like a good.
Yeah.
Honestly, the 2 pre-made adventures were some of the best adventures I have played in a long time. One was a heist, and it made me feel like I was doing a heist. That was really cool. It wasn't just go in and fight everything. That was an option, but it was a heist. You could tell it was a bad option.
Yeah.
Um,
You have your specific
and
cast
that
of
was
characters. You have your schedule of where they'll be, and it's actually a manageable schedule instead of like 9:30 to 10 p.m. or something. It's like
all
I think-
afternoon.
yeah, it's like eight time slots across 24 hours, roughly where they are. It's a table. Check it when you care about it. It's there if you need it, but it works when you need it.
Yeah.
Like, I just remember they had personalities for the guards. I could make friends with a specific guard and then work with their personality to try and do what I wanted.
You never met the
That
cook
was cool.
or the butler or the gardener or the kitchen hand or the maid and their various personalities, and some of them might have helped you. That's all I'm going to say.
Dang.
And they each only have like a paragraph or two. Like it's
Yeah.
not actually, all I said, not that hard to run. It's super easy, works super well. There is a map because it's a heist and you kind of need to sneak in through places. Yeah. I agree with Marissa. These are really good. The heist one actually even better to me than the dungeon crawl one. Part of that is
Oh, the
because
dungeon crawl one was a good one to start with for an idea of this is what the game is.
Now looking at the map, because I didn't cheat and peek when we were doing the adventure, I was literally pulling my hair out trying to figure out the orientation of where the dungeon, like the vault, and the tower map we were given. Like, it makes sense seeing the map, but the whole time doing the adventure, I was literally trying to figure out where it was. There was a large part of that was me trying to figure out where the stupid vault was. It's not the kitchen. It's not here.
No,
Like,
given that you guys literally
more
tunneled in, the confusion makes sense.
Yeah. As soon as every time we got more information, I had to cross something else off the possible. Where the hell is the vault list? Because it gives you nothing. You have to find all of it, which was really well done.
And it has clues. It's like, here's
gathering
5 ways to find it, but it doesn't give you any of them for free.
The fact that it made gathering information interesting and that each day was like, okay, I've got one more thing towards the checklist of what I'm going to. Oh, wait, no, that plan won't work. I now need to switch plans as we're going through and creating this heist. It was cool. It felt impactful and meaningful. And now that is the heist one. The dungeon was a little bit more standard. It was a straight up dungeon.
We're used to it, yeah.
But again, it was really well created. I enjoyed the different aspects of it. I found it fun that we ran straight into the main boss to begin with, but we could have just gone a different way and done that last. Who knows?
Yep.
Yeah.
You also tried to make friends with her like twice. The end boss
And the
of the
wolf
dungeon
told me that I did make friends with her, so there we go.
You actually did, kind of. She was just going to kick you out, but then when she set one of your friends free, they tried to stab her.
Yeah, not my fault.
Nope. But yeah, no, it worked. The dungeon was solid. There's like a full page art spread in the middle of the dungeon that is gorgeous, like ink line art. So if Indigo, if you're looking at the PDF, it's I think page 51, 52.
Oh yeah, that's great. Oh, it's the horrifying arm chamber.
Yeah.
Ooh.
The chamber of arms.
Mm-hmm.
The armory.
The armory.
Yes.
Good name.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a solid dungeon crawl. It like it was our first experience with learning the system and seeing like, oh, it's super lethal. Because it's super lethal, it wasn't filled with that many threats. There weren't
Wasn't. It took 2
any.
threats.
Yeah.
There were like 5, maybe 6 enemies across like a 10 to actually, if I count the numbers, 13-room dungeon. There's like
We only fought like 2 of them, right?
there's
It felt like it
3,
was
I think.
fun
Oh,
exploration,
3.
and
Oh,
when
yeah,
we did combat, it was meaningful. It wasn't just, of
Yeah,
course we do combat. We're in a dungeon.
Yeah,
as
and there's
opposed to
environmental
kicking the
threats.
door, new thing. Like, it skipped that.
And there were environmental threats that were properly foreshadowed of like, yeah, this place is covered in a weird fungus. It explodes.
Yeah.
And you dealt with that like any proper OSR adventurer would, which is poke it with a 10-foot pole, see what it does, manipulate it to your advantage. Blow up an enemy with it, I think you ended up doing.
Yeah,
I think
we
did, yeah.
blew up Frankenstein. Yeah, the pre-built adventures were cool. I think it's fun that they're doing fanzines and encouraging that, just to speak lightly on the last dungeon. But as a result, this world is so specific, I can't imagine myself like figuring out how to put together a fanzine for this, just because how specific this world is and the vibe. I think it's cool, but it's also not the way my brain's wired, so I'd have a hard time doing it. So I have a hard time knowing, like, is this because they got the setting of the vibe of the setting right, or are they trying to do their own thing? It was hard to like snuff that out in a fan-made adventure.
Yeah, the fan-made adventure felt to me, reading through the whole thing, like it was 100% meant to be directly in the setting. It was like built for it. It was written for it. Like it was everything, all of the lore that it was involving was directly from actually the first book, I think, not even the second one.
Yeah.
That part was great. It was a good adventure, but the other 2 previous adventures we had done were so extremely good that going down to merely good still was a drop. Also, it was a game jam like adventure, so like it didn't have that much polish. It didn't have a map. That's not true. There actually was a map, which I'll show you later, but it wasn't a like. It's like a region map, not a map that I could.
It wasn't like our area map.
No, it was a node
I got the
map.
feeling that it was a different design philosophy. We did actually pick up a different pre-made adventure, tried to run it, and realized, oh no, this is not going to work at all, because it was, again, a very different design philosophy set in the same system that didn't quite mesh with the way it looked like the game, the original creators. Yes, it was OSR, or yes, it meshed here, but not fully. And so, yeah, the originals, amazing. The pre-made or the fan designed ones, varying in quality, depends on what you're looking for.
To be clear, the pre-made adventures, the official ones, I basically went in blind and said, let's do them, and other than maybe I'll read about them an hour beforehand. That's all I need. Fan-made one was a bit more traditional. I was like, okay, I'll read about it in advance, I'll think about it, I'll make a tweak here or there, because this specific one had some content warnings that we didn't want to see, so I tweaked it. And it's
that's what they're there for.
That is what they're there for.
Like, that's what the content warnings are for.
That was a good thing.
Very impressive.
But it did require a bit more prep, per se, mental prep. Not that much. Relative to other games, it was still very low. Even the last adventure we did, I would still say, again, if I was to put a number to it, which I don't like, but 8 out of 10. Going from a 10 out of 10, maybe 9.5, down to an 8.
Cool.
But there's lots of stuff out there for this game. Not tons, but more than you think because of the game jam.
Yeah, but enough to spend a couple months playing with your group, so that's a plus. Like, there's enough content that you could experiment with a couple adventures with this game without having to like write a whole campaign, which is kind of the perfect amount. Because sometimes it's overwhelming to have to like pick through all these pre-made adventures, and then you feel like you never have any time to work on like a custom campaign or something, because it's like, but I really want to play Vampire Knight Slayer or whatever, because that seems like such a cool one, so you just never get around to writing your own. This is in the right zone where there's enough pre-written that you can just play it, and if you like it, you can play more and write more for it, but if you just want to play it, you can just play it.
Yeah.
and not have to think about like which one do I want.
So,
Was this the Rubik's Cube dungeon?
this was the last dungeon that you did, yeah.
Oh, sorry, not. Oh, it's a point crawl. I kind of like that.
It is, but the points, some of them were like, yeah, they're it's an hour to traverse this one point. And it also has sub points within it that aren't specifically placed. It's a bit funky.
Fair enough.
It was a point crawl where each of the points are a collection of points. That was the game, I think. Well, it's
Yeah.
Let's answer our last few questions. What does the game set out to do?
Science fantasy OSR adventure.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with that.
How does it achieve that?
I don't think doing that.
I was gonna say
it has a wizard fighter thief. It has
the last
spells.
2 hours.
You can hire a guy.
Nothing but this game does that in every possible way.
It does it good. It does it good. It doesn't feel like they're trying to do it. It just feels like we wrote it and it does the thing.
Yeah. It works really well. Who should play this game?
You've played too many. You like OSR, and you've played too many fantasy adventures, or alternatively, you play other fantasy tabletop. This is definitely a tabletop game person's game. We'll start with that. That's right off the bat. This is not baby's first tabletop. There's too many things going on with this. You gotta know what the basis in the style of game that it is to really notice the points that it's doing. And not to say you can't just pick this up, but I feel like you'll miss something if you're not. I don't know. Maybe that's a lie.
Does this book even have a what is a tabletop game?
It doesn't.
A lot of
hold on.
Good. Yeah. No one likes that sentence.
There's a foreword, but there's a note about science fantasy itself, which I appreciate. Yep. And then right after that, an actual play example. That's what is a tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah.
Much better.
So,
I would say that don't play this game if you're looking for a one-character epic fantasy story where it's this character's life journey from beginning to end.
If you spend 2 hours, yeah.
And then you will be sad. Understand that this is a story for, epic deaths, epic fights, epic moments, but your character's going to be rotating.
Yeah, I made the
mutating. Mutating is not off the table, so hold back on that character art because you could have a crab claw.
Yeah, I went into this making I'm gonna be an assassin warlock, it'll be cool. I died. And then I went, all right, I'm just gonna make Teddy
and
Roosevelt.
You met the assassin you were related to, or trying to find
the second character
after you died with your second character. I tied it into your backstory. And I was like, oh. Okay.
Yep.
It's better it's better to pick red for this game. I think this is where my personal philosophy on character creation comes through, shining strong. Pick whatever to start and get invested as you level up. You level up your investments.
This is a game I would say is for two people. People who play lots of OSR games and people who do not like OSR games, because I am the latter. I do not like most OSR games. I want to. I like parts of them. Again, I love Stars Without Number. And also, I don't think I'm ever going to play it again. We reviewed Cities Without Number, and we were like, this is awesome. And also...
Except for all of these things.
Yeah.
We like Cities Without Number, but it needs more Stars Without Number. It's basically what we said.
Yeah. The Electrum Archive, as I said at the start, I started off with I guess I'll flip through it. Someone gave it to me. And then my opinion of it just kept rising as I read it and kept rising even more as we played it. It is the things, to me, it's the parts of OSR I like without the parts of OSR I don't like. If you have played too many OSR games, which is your own judgment, but if you love OSR games but feel like they're familiar to you in certain ways, this will feel, hopefully, new. You don't like OSR games because of certain types of friction or certain types of interactions or mindsets they do, this might also feel new and different in that way too. So I highly recommend it to most people. I agree, don't play it if you're new to role-playing games. It's not bad, but it's not going to hold your hand.
Yeah, it does feel like a good way to branch out in role-playing games.
It's the
Yeah.
Where
equivalent
it's like,
of,
if
oh,
you
you've
played,
A
never...
good game too.
Yeah.
you've played one game, let's try this fun little one.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
started with D&D 5th edition. You've seen what that can be. Here's this other thing. Like, this would be equivalent of starting the first time someone has ever listened to music. Here's this like super niche, weird, good, but a bit odd CD that someone that like your neighbor made with his garage band.
Maybe start with
I
Pop.
feel like this is a vinyl. Like, you know what I mean?
You're right.
Yeah.
This is totally a vinyl.
Yeah, maybe start with Pop, and then you can
Yeah.
move on to this.
See what's on the radio and branch out from there.
Yeah.
If you're new,
Yeah.
this still would not be a bad choice. You
No,
might
it
get
wouldn't.
confused.
But I wouldn't play it with a group of entirely new people. Like,
Yeah.
if there was
Yeah.
one new person, great. But if it was like 5 new people and someone new running games, this is probably not the best choice.
Yeah.
Or an ambitious choice. I don't know. Have fun. Do what you want. I'm not your mom.
Yeah. But I would say, unless you're brand new to games, and even then, if people around you are used to it, go ahead.
Yeah.
I would actually cast this game as a decently wide net, at least to try. It has lots. It's very easy to go in blind.
It's weird enough that there's nothing that's like, ooh, I don't like elf stories. It's weird enough that you get no preconceived notions about what the world's going to be or
Yeah.
the kinds of stories.
That's what I was about to say, and to build on Marissa's point and basically say the same thing she already said in my own words. Don't tell your story through this game. This is the type of game that you let it lead the story instead of some people, I'm doing this for one thing I'm doing now, try to find a system that fits their campaign idea. This is the opposite of that type of game. This is fit your campaign to the system.
Yeah, like, don't try moving bits around.
Yeah.
Just play the game.
I don't think this would work if you try to do a political, like, thriller game. I don't think this would work for anything that isn't a dungeon/exploration crawl.
Yeah, you're just gonna roll masks 100% of the time if you do the political thriller. Like, hey,
The book
another
assumes
mask
that
check.
you are a dungeon delver. Ink Seeker is a term for that. Everyone is an Ink Seeker by default. You're not just a generic adventurer. You have a specific role in society. It's
Which does feel
basically
like the Shadowrun thing, where it's like, no, sorry, you're Citizen Outnumbered did it too, where it's like, nah, you're a criminal, you do cybercrime. It's the same vibe here. You hunt ink. If you're not hunting ink, you're not playing this game.
yeah. The entire game is built around that. And what are our final ratings?
I did not get my horse, so that does deeply impact my
that's
ratings.
That's true.
Yeah, 3
So,
out of 10, no horse. 3 out of 10.
Cart without the
horse.
yeah.
You put the cart before the horse.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
the
sure
cart
I
came
made
before
that
the
joke.
horse.
Yeah,
you
I
probably
think we've
did.
just several times.
That was a lot, because that was the whole point, was I wanted a cart and I didn't want to buy they didn't have a horse. And I went, no, I'm making my own horse. That was the full thought process. But yeah, not a horse, but pretty good.
For me, please go.
You go, because I got to think of my funny rating like I normally.
All right, because I'm so renowned for my funny ratings. This game threw me off for a loop. I was not expecting it to be as good as it was, not because I had low expectations, but because I had no expectations. I'm coming out of this with it tied for my highest rated game ever at a 9 out of 10. And that is just because it took a simple concept, and to me, it did it really well.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a 86 out of 100 drops. You know, I also tried to be funny and roll on the spell names to see if I get a spell name that would encapsulate the review, and I got Charm of Many Colored Fire. So
I dig it.
There you go.
There we are.
I'm gonna give it 9 silver out of D10 gold. I'm gonna double up on those review.
so it's
jokes.
worthless.
Electrum's awful. Who did that?
Who do we blame?
Who's at fault for Electrum? What
I mean-
historical metallurgist do we have to go back in time and beat up?
Okay.
Wait, it's naturally occurring. We curse Mother Earth.
The Earth is already.
Perfect. Did you rate it Indigo, or did I?
Yeah,
Okay, I missed
perfect.
that.
Save for the horse.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, I thought. Okay. Excellent. I thought that was a come back to me answer. Then that's it for us for this week. We will be back next week. I cannot promise this, but I am hoping we'll be back next week with Dungeon World 2. I have a meeting about it tomorrow.
We'll discuss.
You have to talk to the lawyers.
So maybe we'll be streaming Dungeon World 2 tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Next week.
Next week.
Later.
If not,
Some
we'll be
other
doing a
time.
one shot or something once or twice. And then
Yeah.
we'll probably be doing Dungeon World 2.
Yep.
So,
Excellent.
thank you for watching.